Well, welcome tonight or this morning. I'm a little bit confused right now, and that is because I'm really upset. I discovered this week that there will be no PEEPS this year. Yep, no PEEPS. There will also be no PEEPS with Christmas. Turns out that the company had some production problems because of COVID, and now they hope we will have some cute little yellow chicks with Easter. But we hope. So here I am, no PEEPS. I tell you, 2020, every day, something else. Can't wait really for this year to be open. Now you all go, wait. Backtrack, Pastor Kobie. Are you talking about Halloween? Do you celebrate Halloween, Pastor Kobie? And I go, yeah. They give you go to somebody's house and you knock on the door and they give you chocolate for free. What's wrong with that? That sounds like fantastic to me. I know. Every year when Halloween comes around, there's always people that go, oh, no. You cannot celebrate Halloween. It's all demonic and satanic. Truth be told, the history of Halloween is really murky and inconsistent and vague, and it has some pagan roots from the Druids. It has some Catholic roots. It even has some Protestant Reformation roots. And you know what? If you're going to have a problem with Halloween, then you're going to have a problem with Christmas and Easter too. In fact, all the fun holidays, they have pagan roots. Christmas actually was the day that the Romans celebrated and make offerings to the birth of their god Sol Invictus, the sun god. Yep, we took that one over. You know, we Christians have this thing there. We take over pagan holidays and then we sanitize it and then we Christianize it. All the fun things about Christmas, the tree, the lights, the caroling, all pagan. All of it. Even Easter. You do know that the word Easter is the name for a goddess. Yes, I know. In the bunny and the eggs, yeah, pagan. All of it. You just take a pagan thing and make it Christian, and then after a century or two, none of the pagan roots are left, and it was totally became a Christian holiday. Dates back to that story in the book of Acts 10, where Simon Peter wakes up and this huge blanket comes down from heaven and it's full of all these animals that it's unclean and he's not allowed to eat it, and God says, whatever I make clean, you can eat. So we sort of took that principle, and so we make everything clean and we sanitize it and we go, there you go, now it's a Christian holiday. And the church did that for a reason. It was their way to connect with pagans, to help them transfer into Christianity. So what the church would do, it would come into a pagan town and then it would evangelize people. And then it will look at the pagan temple and go, beautiful building. Not going to break that down. We will just refit it. We will do a little bit update and now it's a church. See? All good. Fixed. Problem solved. That's what we've been doing. And there's even a symbol that you may not be aware of that we did it too, and it hangs around my neck. This is my favorite necklace. I've had this probably for more than 30 years. I got this in South Africa, where I'm from, and I just love it because for me, and I'm sure if you have a cross necklace, it tells me something about my faith. It gives me comfort when I look at it. It reminds me what my faith is all about. It is a positive symbol for me. I can tell you, in the first 4 centuries, you would not find a single Christian doing this, because for them, this was a horrible symbol. This is what Romans used to dehumanize people, to take all humanity from them. The most torturous way that they could think to kill a person with. So the early church symbols were an ankh and a fish, never a cross. But you know, as Christians, we can take a despicable symbol and we can turn it around and give it new meaning. We can make it clean. We can sanitize it. And so now you'll find crosses in every single church in the world. But to come back to Halloween, so where does Halloween come from? That's a long story. And it's all murky, as I said, and all over the place. So we think about 2,000 years ago in the Celtic countries in Europe, like Ireland and France, Druids, who were people who believed, they were pagans, they worshipped, nature, so trees and mountains and water streams. So they had this festival called Samhain, and it was a honoring to all people who have died. Now, in the Druid belief of that time, they believed in incarnation. So they thought that on November 1st, after you have died, on November 1st, you will find your new body, and that body can be an animal or a human being. But on October 31st, the night before, your spirit will be allowed to roam free for one more time to visit, your families, your loved ones, before finding your new body. So it will have this whole festival on the October 31st and bonfires and things. Now, sometimes the spirits got a little bit confused about who's their family. So in order to make sure that the spirits don't harass you, you would dress up in some kind of costume, a mask or something, and the spirits will think, oh, you're one of them, and they won't harass you. So that's sort of where that roots are coming from. And then Christianity spread into Europe very late, and they spread into the Celtic countries, and they start picking up some of this stuff. And around 1,000 after Christ, the Pope said, you know what? I like this holiday. This November, the soul thing sounds very interesting. You know what we could do, how we can Christianize this? We will just take November 1st and we will honor all the martyrs that died for their faith. So now we will remember them. See? Worked. And that is is called All Saints' Day. Even the name Halloween is actually Hallowed Eve, Holy Night, the night before we remember all the holy saints. Just like, you have Christmas and Christmas Eve. And what happened over time is that people would, on October 31st, remember all the saints that have passed on All Saints' Day, then the next day. So not just the martyrs, but all your loved ones that have passed away. So in the Catholic faith, if you die, you don't go directly to heaven. There's, the stages you go through. So when people started to pray on All Hallows Eve, Halloween, for the souls of their departed family members. And so then some poor people came up with a very clever idea. They would go to rich people's houses on Halloween, on Hallows Eve, knock on their doors and say, if you give us a treat, we will pray for your people who have died. So they would give them a sweet cake, which became known as a soul cake. Okay, all good. So then the kids start doing it. We will pray for your auntie that died if you give me a sweet treat. That's all good, all good. Oh, and then the teenagers got involved. Yes. So teenagers go, I'm not going to pray for your auntie that died. But you know what? I'll put on a costume and then I'll say a poem for you, or I'll tell a joke, or I will do something funny. I'll do a trick for you. That's the trick. And then you give me something in return, which could be fruits, some coins, some nuts, no candy yet. So that's how the trick or treat started. So that's what Hallows Eve is. That's Halloween in Europe. This old Irish folktale about Stingy Jack. Now, Stingy Jack meets up with the devil and says, oh, let's go out for a drink at the bar. But he's Stingy Jack, so he doesn't want to pay for his own drink. So he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin so that Stingy Jack could pay for their drinks. Well, Stingy Jack doesn't pay. He takes the coin, puts it in his pocket. Now, the devil can't turn back because Stingy Jack is very clever. He puts a cross next to it. So now the devil is stuck. So eventually the devil and Stingy Jack makes a deal. Stingy Jack says, I will release you if you promise not to take my soul when I die. Okay, deal. All good. Yeah, all good. Well, then he dies one day. He gets into heaven and God goes, no, thank you. I'm not letting you in. And then he gets to hell and the devil goes, well, I can't take you. We had a deal. Oops. So there Jack is stuck. And so for the rest of ever, he has to walk around in the darkness in the world. And so the devil gives him this little coal that he can use to walk around and have some light at night. So Jack takes this piece of coal and he puts it in a turnip. He hollows it out and he puts it in and he makes some holes in the front so that it can be a lantern, and for wherever he wanders around the world at night with his thing. So after a while, the Irish, with all their superstition at that time, said, you know what if he comes around on Hallowed Eve? So they go, okay, you know how we can keep him out. We'll put a turnip that we've carved out with a scary face in our windows with a candle in it, and that will just ward him off. And then the big thing happens. It is potato famine in Ireland, and 8 million Irish immigrate to the United States and bring with them all their traditions. So in 1920, the little town of Minnesota becomes the first city-wide place where they celebrate Halloween. But they figure something out. Do you know how long it will take you to hollow out a turnip? That thing is rock hard like a potato. So what they do instead, they go, oh wait, a pumpkin. Man, this is a fantastic vegetable. You just cut off the top and you scoop up the stuff and you make holes, and fantastic, there you have it. And can you think the first shop owner that goes, wait a minute, why would you give them fruit and nuts? Why don't you give them candy? I can sell you some candy, and the rest is history. And so how we know Halloween today, where you go around and you dress up in a costume and you tell people, give me some candy, that's Halloween today. And it's developed in that way over here. Remember in the beginning I told you it had Druid roots and Catholic roots. It also had Protestant roots. Protestants, October 31st is really, really important. Remember, that is the day that Martin Luther walked up to the church in Wittenberg and took his 95 theses or statements against and hammered it on the door of the church. And that officially started the Reformation. So Protestants go, oh well, it's also a really important day for us, so this is a really good reason to go around and ask for candy. That is how we got to candy. What if you really are concerned about Halloween? Well, then I'm going to take you to the Apostle Paul, who, believe it or not, has addressed this issue. No. He didn't talk about Halloween. He talked about meat. The early Christians in Corinth used to be all Gentiles. They worshipped idol gods. In fact, if you walked around in Corinth, you couldn't walk 5 steps without walking into an idol. An idol is an object that represents a god. That's why it's forbidden in the first 2 commandments. You cannot worship an idol. So when the scriptures talks about idol, it means you thought a statue or a talisman were actually a representation of a god, and if you worship or pray to that stone statue, you are actually praying to or making a sacrifice to a god. So now you have these early Christians. They used to do that, but now they have come to faith in Jesus, and now they know there's no other gods. But now they have a little problem. You see, when people went to the temples, they would bring a big animal with them or buy one that was supplied by the temple, and they would sacrifice it. Now, sacrifice is not cutting up the whole animal and burning it. You just slit open its stomach and you burn the intestines. So there's the rest of the animal. Can that let that go to waste so the priest could take it? But, how many cows can a priest eat in a month? So most of the meat he would sell on the market. Now those were really cheap meat. So people would go to a market and buy some cheap meat, but those were idol meat. So now some Christians go, oh, what must we do? If I eat that idol meat, does that mean God's going to be angry with me because I'm breaking the first and second commandment because I'm actually worshiping idols? And Paul going, no, you do know there's no other God. So that idol meat is just meat. So Paul had to address the issue, and you can read about this. He actually writes a lot about it, and it just tells you how big an issue this was for early Christians. He writes about it in 1 Corinthians 8 that we're going to read. but he also writes about it in chapter 10, and he's going to talk about it in Romans 14 also. I'm starting to read from verses 1, and this is what Paul writes. The question keeps coming up regarding meat that has been offered to an idol. Should you attend meals where such meat is served or not? We sometimes tend to think we know all we need to know to answer these kind of questions. But sometimes our humble hearts can help us more than our proud minds. We never really know enough until we recognize that God alone knows it all. Some people say, quite rightly, that idols have no actual existence, that there is nothing to them, that there is no God other than our one God, that no matter how many times these so-called gods are named and worshipped, they still don't add up to anything all but a tall story. Meaning you can pray to an idol as much as you want, it is actually just a stone statue. They say again, quite rightly, that there is only one Father, one God, the Father, that everything comes from Him, and that He wants us to live for Him. Also, they say that there is only one Master, Jesus the Messiah, and that everything is for His sake, including us. Yes, it is true. In strict logic, only Paul can think like this, then nothing happened to the meat when it was offered to an idol. It's just like any other meat. I know that, and you know that, but so knowing it isn't everything. It becomes everything. If it becomes everything, some people end up as know-it-alls who treats others as know-nothings. Real knowledge isn't that sensitive. We need to be sensitive to the fact that we're not all at the same level of understanding in this. Some of you have spent your entire lives eating idol meat and are sure there is nothing bad in the meat. So Paul is saying, you and I know it's just a stone statue. It's not an idol. So yeah, go to the festival, have fun, eat the meat. It's just meat. It doesn't matter to who it was sacrificed because there is actually no other gods. You and I know that. It's not a problem. But here is the problem. Is that Corinth is full of Christians that their whole life actually did believe there were actual gods. You go and you eat the meat and you go, it's nothing. But when they eat the meat, the thing that they've experienced their whole life is still there, that this is real for them, that they are actually worshiping this God. And so it is hard for them. If you come to a Presbyterian church on a Sunday, most of us, including ours, and you come to communion, you are going to get grape juice. We are not going to use wine with communion. And you're going to go, why? I don't understand now. Aren't you guys fine with wine? Yes, we are. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I preached about how Jesus made more wine at a wedding where people were already tipsy. So we don't have a problem with wine. But, and here's the big but, what if I serve communion on a Sunday and there's sitting somebody in the pews who are trying to become sober? What if somebody's sitting there that is a recovering alcoholic and me serving them wine for communion is the one thing that tricks them, that trips them up? So we go, yes, I would love to use wine with communion, but there may be people sitting in the congregation for who that will be not a good thing. And so even though I know scripturally there's nothing wrong with wine, I cannot serve it during communion because I don't want somebody to backslide. I don't want to be responsible. Even worse, that I don't want people not to come to communion who is supposed to feed us, who is supposed to strengthen our faith, and that's the very thing that is dangerous to them. That's what Paul is talking about here. So he says when we have to make decisions about stuff, yes, you can be totally right about something, but you also have to take in mind what the effect on your brother and sister on faith shall be when you make a choice. And so he writes this, to keep this all in mind. But fortunately, God doesn't grade us on our diet. We're neither commended when we clean our plates, nor reprimanded when we can't stomach it. Meaning, whether you drink or not drink wine, God doesn't care. Whether you celebrate Halloween or not celebrate Halloween, God can care. Whether you eat the idol meat or not eat the idol meat, God doesn't care. That's not what God is concerned about. Listen, but God does care when you use your freedom carelessly in a way that leads fellow believers still vulnerable to these old associations to be thrown off track. Paul is going, just be aware, people in Corinthians, that all those Christians who used to believe that these idols were actually representations of actual gods, they can't just flip a switch and undo years and years of conditioning. And you don't want to be the one responsible when they are still vulnerable to cause them to slide back. So he writes, for instance, say you flaunt your freedom by going to a banquet in honor of idols, where the main course is meat sacrificed to idols. Isn't the great danger if somebody is still struggling over this issue? Somebody who looks up to you as knowledgeable and mature sees you go into a banquet. The danger is that he or she will become terribly confused, maybe even to the point of getting mixed up in themselves that their conscience tells them it is wrong. Christ gave up his life for that person. Wouldn't you at least be willing to give up your going to that dinner for him? Because, as you say, it doesn't really make any difference. But it does make a difference if you hurt your friend terribly, risking his or her internal ruin. When you hurt your friend, you hurt Christ. A free meal here and there isn't worth it, as if the cost is at the cost of one of these weak ones. So never go to these idol-contained meals if there is any chance that they will trip up one of your brothers and sisters. So to get back to the topic that we were talking about in the beginning, you can celebrate Halloween or you can't. Doesn't matter. Has nothing to do with the occult or satanic forces or the devil or whatever. The criteria Paul tells you to use is to ask yourself if it is harmful to someone else. If I can sum it up like this, he tells you this, and that harks back to what we read in Acts 10 about stuff being made clean by God. Everything is clean and everything is good until it is harmful. So if what you do is harmful, clearly harmful to somebody, then you can't do it. Everything is clean and everything is good until it's used for evil purposes. Then it's not acceptable. And everything is good and everything is clean until it causes somebody else to stumble. Those are the criteria you are supposing to be using to decide whether you are gonna drink wine or celebrate Halloween. So all three these things I just said, if it's harmful, if it's used for evil purposes, if it leads somebody to stumble in their faith, Paul sums up in one verse, and it is in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verses 23, and this is what he writes about our freedom. All things are lawful. Remember I told you all is good and clean. All things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Do not seek your own advantage, but the advantage of others. That should be your guiding principle of when you make decisions whether you should partake in something or not. And that is why on a Sunday morning when you get here on communion, you're going to get grape juice, not wine. Now that all said, there's all long spiel around and back at PEEPS is that it doesn't really matter this year because Halloween has been cancelled. I'm sorry. Yes, it has been cancelled. My camera person / editor producer, Simone, loves Halloween. I mean, Simone has an extensive collection of costumes that she wears. She comes up with the most amazing costumes. So I'm like, and Simone, what are you gonna do this year? I mean, can't do Halloween. So I ask her, and she will tell you.
Hello from Hawaii. No, I'm just kidding. I'm stuck at home just like you are in this pandemic. This year, when the LA County Department of Public Health gave out their Halloween guidelines, there were more don'ts than do's, which in a nutshell conveyed that Halloween is canceled. Such a bummer because I love to get dressed up. Any occasion to put on a costume and do something different, I am all for it. Halloween is the biggest time of the year to do that. I also love giving out candy to the trick-or-treaters where I can see their creativity in their costumes, their excitement, and just the entire fun that is around the holiday. Well, not this year. So instead, I came up with the idea to have a Halloween door decorating contest in my apartment building. Our tenants are encouraged to decorate their door either in the most spookiest category, the cutest category, or most creative. It's really cool to see my neighbors getting into it and decorating their doors. In addition, since trick-or-treating is basically out the window, what I am doing instead is that each unit is going to get one of these boxes filled with treats for Halloween. Even though this year's Halloween looks a little bit different due to the pandemic, I'm making the most of it. That's what we've got to do. So, have a fantastic holiday. Maybe put out some decorations, maybe dress up, maybe just do something and have some fun. Besides, we could all use a little bit of fun during this pandemic.